Hey everyone, Monk here, and today I bring you my PVE Magicka Necromancer build that I have been playing for some time and really enjoying. The build is set up in such a way so that you can take it everywhere, be it solo arenas, dungeons or even trials. And on top of that, it's very fun and easy to play with simplest of the rotations. So without any more delay, let's jump in. Race. Khajiit, Dunmer and High Elf are the three top races that you cannot go wrong with. The extra crit damage and the recovery passives from Khajiit pair really well with the class passives of Necromancer. And especially with our gear setup and Mundus stone, Khajiit does tend to come out slightly ahead of the other two. High Elf and Dunmer are however not too far behind, but especially in a non-optimized environment such as dungeons or solo arenas where you don't have access to a lot of trial buffs, like Warhorn or Major Slayer, Khajiit does tend to perform slightly better than the other two. And then, who doesn't like to play a cat? For the Mundus stone, we are using Thief. Extra crit chance when paired with Khajiit's crit damage passive is really strong. Shadow is also not too far behind, but Thief in general just works well in every situation and gear setup. For the food, we are using standard health and Magicka Bystat food. Necromancer's class passives are really strong when it comes to sustain, and with the gear setup and skill combination, sustain should not be an issue. However, if you do find yourself struggling with sustain, then you can also use a standard Parse food with Max Mag and Mag Recovery. For the CP in the blue tree, the three most important slottables are Master of Arms, Fighting Finesse and Biting Aura. For the fourth slottable, you'd be switching back and forth between Backstabber and Deadly Aim. Any place where you can't be behind boss during most of the fights, such as solo or group arenas and Sunspire, switch to Deadly Aim, and everywhere else, Backstabber will be your go-to option. And now I'll go through the setup, skills and rotation for the solo instances first, and then we'll go through the setup for group content. So, for the solo setup, we are using one piece of light or medium slime claw and 5 pieces of false god on body. You can also use false god in a combination of jewelry and body pieces, however make sure that you never use false god on front bar weapons. It's not a set which carries over to the back bar. The second set we are using is Elemental Catalyst. Yes, it might come as a surprise to many considering this set has always been considered a buff set for the raids, but with the recent buff to the set which has increased the crit damage from 3 to 5% per element, 15% overall boost to crit damage is way too much to let go. It's effectively a free Shadow Mundus stone on top of Thief, which we already have active. So we would be using a Precise Inferno Staff of the Catalyst with Flame Damage Glyph on the front and then 3 pieces of Catalyst on body or in combination with jewelry. All the jewelry will be bloodthirsty and with spell damage. The alternative option to Catalyst for those who don't want to farm for hundreds of runs to get the Inferno stuff would be Diamond's Victory. It's a craftable set, and even if you don't have the DLC, you can ask your friends or guildmates to craft it. It's a very good damage set, especially for Necromancer, and the way rotation is set up, it will easily get you 99% uptime on both and melee supremacy. So take a pick, and either of the sets work great on this class for solo as well as group setups. A third option here which also works well but not as good is Medusa. Gives us the freedom to not use trap or channeled acceleration to get the minor force buff, but in my testing it does drop the DPS quite a bit. And since channeled acceleration is a 36-second buff, it's easy to cast in between the enemy waves and keep up the minor force. However, if you do use this, then make sure to use 1 piece on chest and then 2 on the jewelry with Precise Inferno on the front bar. Now for the last pieces, Pale Ring has of course retained its slot as our main source of healing, especially for solo instances, and on the back bar we have the old, tried and tested Maelstrom Infused Inferno Staff with a weapon damage enchant. Now for the skills with solo setup, on front bar we have Skeletal Arcanist, Mystic Siphon, Blast Bone, Force Pulse, Unnerving Boneyard, and Ice Comet. Unnerving Boneyard is here to give us the major breach by reducing armor by almost 6000, and Force Pulse is our main spammable to even more reliably proc Elemental Catalyst. And at the same time, it's also a decent AoE damage skill to cleave the small adds. On the back bar, we have Channeled Acceleration, Harness Magicka, Summoner's Armor, Mystic Orbs, Unstable Wall of Elements, and Elemental Rage as our main ultimate. Summoner's Armor is one of the most overlooked skill in PvE for solo content. 6000 resistances and 12% cost reduction to Arcanist and Blastbone is nothing to sneeze at. Channeled Acceleration is there to give us the minor force, so make sure to refresh it between enemy waves. Now, with the skills out of the way, let's have a quick look at the rotation and then we move on to the dungeons and trial setup. Before starting the combat, pre-buff yourself with Channeled Acceleration, Summoner's Armor and Skeletal Arcanist. Then we start the combat by casting a Blastbone and dropping the Destro ulti. After this is a 2-line static rotation with few dynamic elements baked in. So we continue with casting Boneyard, Wall of Elements, Blastbone, Siphon Orbs, Blastbone, 2 Force Pulse. And after this, rinse and repeat. Now for the dynamic components, Force Pulse also acts as a flex spot. So whenever a skill that is ultimate, Summoner's Armor, Skeletal Arcanist or Channel Acceleration needs recasting, we would simply replace Force Pulse with one of these skills. If multiple skills are running out at the same time, then the priority order will be Ultimate, Skeletal Arcanist, Summoner's Armor and Channel Acceleration. To be honest, for solo content, fights are usually too short to do a full rotation. So make sure all your buffs are up and then keep using the skills in the order as mentioned. Also remember during the execute, and that is for the last 200 to 300,000 of the boss health, don't refresh any dots anymore and just use a Blastbone every 2 Force Pulse. And now let's go to the setup for dungeons and trials. For the dungeons, the setup is primarily the same setup as for solo with a few changes, that is drop the Pale Ring if you have a healer and instead use the Death Dealer's Fate Ring. Same goes for the skills and rotation. We keep them exactly as they are. And for the trials, if you're on Catalyst duty, then setup will be 1 piece of Slime Claw with 3 Elemental Catalyst on body and 1 Precise Infernus Staff with Fire Damage Glyph or 2 Precise Daggers with Fire and Poison Glyph. Second set would be Bahsei's Mania on 3 jewelry and 2 body pieces. You can mix and match the pieces as you see fit as long as you run the Catalyst weapons on the front bar. On the leg, we will be using 1 piece of Kilt, and whenever you can't use Kilt, replace it with either a medium Zahn piece on shoulder or a Death Dealer's Fate Ring. On the back bar, we have the same infused Maelstrom Infernus Staff from before with Weapon Damage Glyph. Now if someone else is using Catalyst in the group, then replace it with Ceruria or Damon's Victory. Both sets are really strong, and the only thing you need to watch out for is how mobile the fight is. If you don't have to move too much, such as in Sunspire, go with Ceruria. And other places such as Cloud Rest or Rock Grove, go with Damon's Victory. And if you really want to play safe, just craft a set of Damon's Victory and use it everywhere. Now for the skills on front bar, we have is Inner Light, Mystic Siphon, Blastbones, Degeneration, Avid Boneyard and Ice Comet. Ice Comet, however, will be replaced with Colossus in a trial because 99% time all Necromancer are on Colossus duty, unless you get lucky to be the Parse monkey. Also remember, we are using the Avid morph of Boneyard, which allows us to use the synergy as well. It's a slight DPS boost, but if you don't want to bother with changing the morph all the time, then go with Unnerving Boneyard morph. On the back bar, we have Skeletal Arcanist, Barb Trap, Scalding Rune, Mystic Orbs, Unstable Wall of Elements, and Elemental Rage as the ultimate. Once again, if you are on the Colossus duty, then drop Elemental Rage from here and instead slot Colossus for other 4% extra crit during execute, or Ice Comet for extra mag. And now for the fun part, rotation. So regardless of what setup you are using, we'll keep the rotation same and static. The biggest benefit of a static rotation is that in combat you never have to look at your skill bars. Of course, given you have done enough practice already. So for the pre-buff part of the rotation, if you're using an add-on like Dressing Room to switch setups, then dump your mag using Siege Shield or Purge, and then at the end cast Channeled Acceleration before switching back to original setup. Make sure Potion is at about 25-second cooldown and then start the combat with using Blastbone, Scalding Rune and drop the Destro ulti. If not using Channeled Acceleration, then drop the trap after Scalding Rune. By this time, first Blastbone should have already hit the target. And now begins the static part. So we continue with Blastbone, Wall of Elements, Mystic Orbs, Siphon, Blastbone, Boneyard, Scalding Rune, Blastbone, Degeneration, Skeletal Arcanist. Now please note that we would be alternating between Trap and Arcanist every second rotation. You would be losing about 1 second on Trap and 2 on the Arcanist, but rest of all the skills will have perfect uptime. We would keep this rotation till the execute, and when about 500 to 600k health is left on the target, we would switch to our execute rotation. And that is simply alternating Blastbones with Scalding Rune and Wall of Elements. The last point to note in this rotation is about the ultimate. After dropping the Destro at the beginning, for the rest of the fight, we'll be using Ice Comet as our main ultimate. And every time you must use an ultimate, either squeeze it in during a front to back power swap or replace Degeneration with the ultimate. So this is it guys, I'll leave you here with a sample Parse rotation with Catalyst and Bahsei, and some parses will be posted in the info below. And if you have any questions about build, gear or rotation, feel free to ask in the comments below. I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. See you soon in the next video.